Maybe Laura, can you talk a little bit about your stream in terms of teaching about UX and how that works?
Yeah, so I'm involved in two parts of the program. So typically I co-teach in the fall term in
Uh-huh.
Project One. So as you can imagine, it's their first round, first exposure to projects. So they work on either projects that are industry influenced, meaning they're inspired by something that's out in the real world. And sometimes we work with project sponsors where they've loosely sponsored a problem space for the students to investigate. So this is the students' first opportunity to come together, hone their team collaboration skills, maybe get a little bit outside of their comfort zone and begin to expand their skill, like their technical skills into other areas. And then lastly, just learn how to respond to clients' needs and define a problem and execute on a series of wireframes and prototypes and iterate along the way. And so that's a really huge component of that first term within the MDM program. The second
Mm.
capacity that I'm involved with is in an elective. Uh, I tend to bore easily, so it's never the same elective every year. It has the same title, but I change it around and I kind of adapt it to what students' needs and desires are. So in the
Mhm.
past year, it's taken on two different forms. One was more user research inspired because the students really wanted to immerse themselves more deeply in the methodologies that are available to them and that they might encounter in the real world. So we spent a term investigating that space. I've also taught a version of the elective where we use what we can learn from the physical world and take those principles and learn how do you transform them to a virtual world, specifically things that you need to consider in terms of spatial design. So how does space work in the real world and what parts of that make sense whenever you're translating that to say like AR or VR, and what things don't make sense. And so every year is a little bit different in terms of the electives that I teach, but they always have a design flavor about them.
Yes, yes. I think, what the program teaches is very practical, right? Because I mean, honestly, like we're in the UX industry, and then we know that a lot of companies or senior people are looking for other experienced like professionals, but because of the gap in education, in traditional education, there's a lot of people who wants to come into the industry, and then they are not equipped with the skills to meet the demand of the industry. So there's a huge gap right now. That's why there's a lot of these, short-term 3-month courses that are popping up as well. So there's more demand than supply, I would say. And so if they can get all these skills and get real-world project experiences when they come out, they'll be much more employable, right? Yeah. And anything to mention about the industry here in Canada in terms of like what companies do your students go to, and you know yeah, what work do they do?
Yeah, it's a really wide spectrum. You see everything from, well, students starting up their own companies or working for other startups, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where they're going to work at, say, like Microsoft or SAP, really large entities, and then everything in between. The other thing that influences it is geography. So if they want to stay in Vancouver versus go outside of Vancouver or even outside of Canada. And then the other part is their own experiences that they brought into the program. So we have pretty large diversity in terms of what the student population kind of looks like. We have people who are coming
Yeah.
straight from undergrad programs, and we have people who are veterans of their industry coming back to school after a number of years in the workforce. And so depending on what you kind of bring in, that also changes what you are able to do coming out of the program.
Right. And also it's very international. Like the team that I got is very international. Can you say like what countries and what students are where they're coming from?
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
Brian,
got a
maybe I think you have better insight into that.
I've got a bit on that. Yeah, I've been actually looking at some numbers recently just to kind of track some of our historical data there. Typically, when we look at a cohort, it is, I would say probably 60% plus international, and then the rest would be Canadian. So a large international population in our programs. And so one of the things, as myself as a graduate, I noticed is you get a lot of experience, unique experience from your classmates, because it's so diverse. You learn a lot of different ways and methodologies from your classmates. Definitely our biggest international source would be China. India is big as well. Iran is another big one. Pakistan. But we also, in the current cohort, we have South America represented, Europe represented, as well as obviously China and India and Korea. We have quite a few Korean students this year as well. So it's a global program. There are people from all over every year. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I also remember when we were at CMU. I mean, I didn't realize the advantage of having such global, like, classmates. So now, after graduation, you have classmates from like Korea and India and South America. So all of a sudden your network is like global, right? And then they go back to their countries, or you keep in touch. So it's actually really, really important, I think, also, right?
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why we want to talk about this is also because like the Canadian government also have this new policy about accepting Hong Kong youth, right? So we wanted to be able to let them know about the CDM program, and also about living in Canada and working over here. Any tips you have for international students, especially coming from Asia?
In terms of the application process, or in general, in terms of
process, or also in general, right? Like, do they find it really cold here, or
Well, I could jump in there first, because I do handle a lot of those questions through the admission side of things, and international language is always one of the bigger questions in terms of applications. Making sure that I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Hong Kong, English is a primary language, I think.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
It's bilingual, but it depends on the individual, right? Also, yeah.
So long as a student has studied in Hong Kong at a school that English is the primary language, they would be exempt from any English testing, which is unique. That's one of the unique characteristics.
Oh, so they don't have to take TOEFL, or I don't even know it's TOEFL nowadays.
TOEFL and IELTS, you're exactly right. Yeah, exactly. So IELTS, okay. Yeah. So if they have studied fully in English in a country where English is one of the primary languages, that exempts them from the language test. So that's usually the first question I get from international students. So from students from Hong Kong.
Interviewed, for the program?
Once we shortlist the group of applicants for the cohort, the interview is the next step. So we will do an interview as well with the students as part of the process. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. I see. Okay. Yeah. So language is one thing. Anything else, like?
Yeah, language is definitely one of the primary ones. Transcripts, we do require a 4-year bachelor degree for the master's program. And I think it's is Hong Kong Technical University. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have my notes directly there, but there is a 3-year program in Hong Kong that is acceptable as well too. But typically it's the 4-year bachelor degree we require to get into the master's program. Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
And Vancouver. Vancouver, you just mentioned weather really quickly too. Vancouver is lovely. I mean, it's not a Toronto, it's not a Montreal, it's not, so the weather is, in terms of Canada, you're getting a temperate sort of weather there. So it's a very comfortable place. Ski, swim, you can hike. It's a great place to be in Canada for sure.
Yeah.
It's probably the warmest area, right? In Canada.
So yeah.
Victoria's a tiny bit warmer, but negligible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, this year, like the coldest was like in February, there was snow for 2 weeks or 10 days, something like that. And maybe with global warming, it's actually not as cold as before.
Yeah, it's been temperate.
It is wet here, though.
Yeah. Bring your raincoat.
Yeah, a little wet, but that's why we have like beautiful flowers, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful natural environment. Can you talk about like when's your next application deadline and how do people apply?
Sure, yeah. So we're open for applications. We have one cohort a year. That's really important to lay out
Uh-huh.
as well, and that's starting in September. So we don't have a January intake. It's just September. We're open for admissions right now until February the 15th. So there still is plenty of time to apply if students are interested, and then they'd hear back from us within, say, 3 weeks to a month. Laura, as well as myself and the other faculty, spend some time reviewing all the applications once it's closed. And then the interview is the next step for those who are shortlisted. Yeah.
I see. And when do they know if they're going to be accepted after February 15th
So it'll
for
probably
September?
be, yeah, it'll probably be about March 15th, give us about a month or so, and they would have the finalized offer letter by then. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's pretty quick. Okay.
Yeah.
And so how do you guys deal with COVID now? With people that got accepted, do they do this remotely or do they still have to fly over? How does that work?
Yeah. Well, we are doing our classes remotely right now because of COVID. All the institutions are closed down. But I always let applicants know it's a temporary situation. It is because it's a team-based and project-based program, it's important to be around other students. So we'll return to that. But we have a great blog on our website with some of the past students talking about their experience being remote, and the MDM program is uniquely positioned to provide the skills and the training to students on how to deal with this new working reality during COVID. So it's been a positive experience for the students. And Laura, you've been working with them directly. I think it's been unique in a lot of ways, but positive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a different way of learning, but you still see the same camaraderie, the same level of collaboration, maybe even more in a way, because there's a way that the screen makes you focus on what needs to be done. And so when in Projects One, they went through their presentations fairly recently, it was really impressive how much they got done in such a short period of time.
Wow. Okay.
They were dealing with all the real life problems. Anyone who's collaborating with a team that's across the globe, different time zones, asynchronous, multiple platforms, like figuring out how do we share these files and explain what's happening. They were subjected to all of that and solved for it.
I see. Yeah. And I've also been to, your campus. Thanks, Laura, for touring me around last time. I understand that like for international students, they can actually live in the building, right? Yeah.
Yep, that's
like there's
correct.
like 100 rooms or something. Is that how does
Yeah.
that work?
Yeah, so on top of if you look at the picture of the building from the side, the lower levels, all our offices and our classrooms, and then the upper floors, I believe there's 3 or 4 floors, are all residences, and students can apply to live there. There are studios, so there's a couch and a desk and stuff in the main room with a bed, and they've got their own bathrooms and kitchens and stuff. So a lot of our students do take that opportunity to live on campus, but Vancouver is also a place with lots of rental market available. So yeah, they're all over really. Yeah.
So how many people are in one class and what percentage stays on campus versus not?
In terms of the class size, there's usually 50 to 60 students that we accept per year. So the classes, the main classes in the first term would be all of those. The electives, like Laura teaches, the students have an opportunity to choose in their second and third term which class they take. So they'll be a little bit smaller class size. In terms of those who are on campus living versus off campus, it definitely varies from year to year, because Emily Carr also students are also able to stay on the campus because that school is next door to us. So I'd say probably about 20% or so of the students, if I had to make an estimate, would be living on campus.
Oh, stay on campus.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah.
I saw. Okay. Great. Yeah, and I also know Samsung is just right next door, right?
Yes.
They come to the building. Yeah.
They built a
Okay,
great
so
new building there, and Samsung's there. Emily Carr's new campus is there as well too. Blackbird Interactive is next door. My wife actually works at that company. It's a gaming company, and
right,
it's a high tech hub that's being built up in that area, and it's
right.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's,
I think
I was just going to say that the location on the campus is really nice because you're right on the edge of downtown. You're not immersed in downtown, but it's close enough that you can see it and bike to it or walk.
Yeah.
So it's very conveniently located.
right, yeah. Yeah, I think, how the school, kind of is highly connected to industry is actually very good for the students for that transition, into the workplace, or, even, come back, to teach more students, how to integrate with profession. So,
Yeah.
anything else you want to tell our audience? Apply for the program by February
Definitely
15th,
apply.
right?
I mean, I'm a
Yes.
graduate, and I came back to the program. It's a unique program. One of the things that all this is my last point is students, in my experience personally, and in talking to applicants, are always shocked at the level of interaction and um, uh, friendship and camaraderie they have with both their co-students and their faculty. Um, there's always discussions going on. That's one thing that I very much appreciate, and I've heard is Laura's available, Jason, Dave. There's always communications going on between the students and the faculty, and I think that's quite unique. Is there's a lot of one-on-one time there. It's a great program to be a part of if you enjoy those conversations.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
I was just going to say, I think that's really true. It's not like other more, I don't know how to explain it, but more formal kind of academic setting. So we don't go by, Dr. So-and-so or Professor so-and-so, and like there's this distance or buffer between the instructor and the students. It's very, I don't want to say casual because that makes it sound like we don't take it seriously, but we all get to know each other really well, and the faculty are available outside of that core class. So for example, let's say you took Jason's game design class in the fall and you're like, okay, well, that's it for Jason. It's not like that at all. If you have a question to ask of Jason, 6 months down the road, you just drop him a line and he'll respond, or you want him to give you feedback. And I think the same is true for any of the faculty members. We are there to support students throughout their whole journey. And we hear from so many of them afterwards too. And they'll come back and sit in on classes or give lectures or talk about their work. And so there's a lot of sharing that goes within the community.
Right, yeah. And one last point I want to mention is actually, I was pretty surprised to come back and find that actually, I think Vancouver's industry has evolved a lot. Like back when my parents immigrated here, like my impression of Vancouver is like a retiree city with a lot of students. But now, I mean, since like last few years, there's this like radical research conference that is a huge event, and IXDA Awards, Vancouver. I think there's a Vancouver UX Awards here. And also all these Silicon Valley tech companies have moved up here, or set up satellite offices like, Amazon, Microsoft. I think Facebook is here. And these tech startups like Hootsuite and Slack, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's much better than, 10, 15 years ago. And also many meetup groups in UX or the like. So I think the community is definitely growing here for people who want to, immigrate here or, find a career over here.
Yeah.
So, okay, great. So thank you so much, Lauren and Ryan, for your sharing. And I hope, we get more people from Hong Kong to join your program.
Yeah, we'd love to see them here.
And
All
feel
right,
free to reach out. Yeah, the admissions at thecdm.ca. If they have any questions, I'll be there to help them if they need anything. Yeah.
Okay, maybe send me a few links and I'll include it in the YouTube video.
Perfect.
Okay?
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.